In this video, we're going to be translating chapter 35, Crime. In the picture you can see poor Eucleides is the victim therein. And as per usual, I'll be embedding 3 items, stuff that we've talked about this year, actually, in Latin too, to earn yourself a credit for, obviously, just watching it. So, let's continue, or start. Postquam Aurelia cubitum it. After Aurelia went, did go, has gone. This is from the verb, remember? Eo ire, to go. In the present tense, it would look like the following. Eo, is, it, I go, you go, he goes. Emus, we go. Etis, y'all go. Eunt, they go. But if I were to expand it out, obviously the third principal part is ii. You take the perfect stem, short I, 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 and then add your perfect endings, which we all know is e, isti, it, imus, istis, and erunt. Note the difference between he went, he did go, he has gone, versus he goes. And in this case, this is she, obviously. And this is an idiom. After she went to bed, literally, however, this is what's called a supine. That would, of course, indicate purpose, to bed down, for the purpose thereof. Cornelius still was remaining in the atrium. Cornelius, worried or anxious. The atrium is the main room of the Roman house at which you would enter, and it would have a hole in the ceiling to let in rainwater and a pool of water right below to where it would be collected. Eucleides, e erat. And again you see that perfect stem, e, from eo ire with erat, the pluperfect ending. Eucleides had gone out, and it's for Eucleides had gone out early in the morning to the house of his brother, short is, his brother who was living on the Quirinal Hill. There are 7 hills of Rome traditionally, and the Quirinal Hill is one of them. New word in this chapter, colus, meaning hill. And an easy way that you can remember those 7 hills would be, please consume all exquisite cookies very quickly. And that Q is the Quirinal. The 2 are up here, and the 3 of PCA are the most important. They include the Palatine Hill and the Capitoline Hill. These are the 2 central hills that overlook the Forum. And then, of course, you have the Aventine, Esquiline, Caelian, Viminal, and Quirinal. For the interest of time, I will not go into it as much, but that is apparently where his brother was living, on the Quirinal Hill. Already, it was, from Sumese, middle night. We would call that midnight. And, remember that neque by itself means and not. And Eucleides had not returned. It's the same as erat, had gone, but here it is had gone back. He had not returned home. What had happened to him in the dative case? Is a nominative, as genitive, ae in the dative case. And of course this verb to happen. At last, Eucleides entered, perfect stem with the perfect ending. Eucleides aspersus. Now this is the perfect passive participle. Aspergo, aspergere, aspersi, aspersus. Having been splattered. Having been splattered sanguine with blood. Cornelius says, di immortales, immortal gods. Normally gods would be written, you would expect it, with the stem and the ending, but for the word gods, very often, it would just drop out. And then here it's an exclamation. Quid tibi accidit? What happened to you? Now pay close attention to the word accidit. It comes from the impersonal verb, and I'll write it up here. Accidit. So already in the first principal part you see it's odd in that it doesn't end with O. It's a impersonal, meaning the subject is always it. And then accidere, and then accidit. Here it is present stem, present vowel, present ending. Here it's the perfect stem and the perfect ending. It just happens that the stems are identical and the letter combinations allow it to have the vowel and the ending is identical to the perfect ending of itself. So, it happens, it is happening, it does happen right now. It happened, it did happen, it has happened in the past. I am choosing here as happened because it is obviously in the past as he exclaimed, perfect tense. Euclides responded nothing. Likewise, respondit, I know that it is a perfect tense because its present would look like the following. Respond, exact same stem as the perfect stem, but here it would have the vowel E and then T because it is a second conjugation. He responded, here it is the perfect ending, nothing. He had fallen, pluperfect again, cado, cadere, kickity, to the ground. Immediately slaves, the ones having been called, perfect passive participle, fourth principal part, to the atrium, they ran together, concurrent, very quickly. A superlative adverb. Euclides positus est. This is from pono ponere posui positus. And we can see the perfect passive participle. Paired with a present of the verb to be makes a perfect passive. Was placed, has been placed. If I had had paired with it, erat, had been placed. And if it were erit paired with it, it would be the future perfect. Will have been placed. But instead, it is our perfect verb. So Euclides was placed, has been placed on the bed. And the wounds of him, his wounds, from is aid, the genitive, eis, lauta, atque ligata, sunt. Both lauta and ligata, connected by that atque, which means and, are sharing the sunt. So lauta from lavo lavare, to wash. The wounds lauta sunt, were washed, have been washed. Atque and ligata sunt, have been tied up, have been bound. Ligo ligare, ligavi ligatus. That's why we call the things that tie your muscles to your bones ligaments. And what ties the mouthpiece, of course, or the reed to the mouthpiece is the ligature. Diu, for a long time he was lying. I know this is the verb lie, yakeo yakere, and not the verb to throw, because throw would look like the following. That from a third io, yakeo yakere, to throw. This is yakeo yakere, to lie down. So for a time he was lying down, he, the motionless one. Modifying an understood subject, nominative fake ending is that we often see. At last, he recuperated. He recovered his mind. And slowly, he opened perfect stem, perfect ending, his eyes. After, he drinks. If it were perfect tense, coming from the verb bibo, bibere, bibi, do you see how it would have the perfect long I stem? So after he drinks something, aliquis someone, aliquid something of the wine, genitive part of whole, he explained the rem totam, the total situation. Res rei, fifth declension word. Today, early in the morning, while I climb down into the city. Now, why do you climb down into the city? They live on hills, 7 hills, remember. That's why Rome, Georgia is named Rome, Georgia. It also has 7 hills, and why it has the same name. I met. Occurra, occurre, occurri. Perfect stem, perfect ending. And this verb requires a dative object. A poetae quidam. Quiquai quod, with a dom on the end of it, now means a certain. I met a certain dative poet, to whom the name is Marcus Valerius Martialis. Your dative here shows possession. Your dative here is special verb object. And so, this, of course, is the famous poet Martial. Martial, noted for writing these short, little satirical, mean-spirited at times, and so they're fun to read, poems called epigrams. Epigrams is what he writes. And so as a historical, real literature author figure, he is incorporated into our fictional story as a friend of Euclides. Euclides, being an educated fellow, would obviously be friends with a fellow like this. Now look at breviore. It is ablative, modifying itere, but note it has IOR, so not just short, but shorter, and it's ablative. By, with, because of, from, in, on, at. A shorter journey, he led me. We would say shortcut, but on a shorter journey, he led me to the apartment building. Now, is ed, when it is by itself, means he, she, it, or him, her, it. But when it modifies something, it turns into the equivalency of a hic, hac, hoc, this or these. Or lea, la, lud, that or those. So he led me to this apartment building, to that apartment building, in which my brother lives. Present tense, present stem, present vowel, present ending. Plurima de praedonibus huius urbis mihi narravit. He told, give, show, speak, or tell, gotta ring the data bell. He told to me, plurima. Now this is not multa. Multa would be many things. It's not plura, more things, but very many things. Neuter, plural, accusative, direct object. So he told to me very many things. The most things, I'm substantizing it, about robbers of this city. Genitive, short is, and huius from hic, hac, hoc, genitive line, huius, huius, huius. I, however, scarcely, barely, weeks means barely or scarcely, believed, credo, credere, credidi, new word in this chapter, and it also takes a dative, which ae is aed, as, the dative line, ae, I scarcely believed him. Normally an object, accusative, direct object, but special verbs like occurri and credidi, dative objects. But, ubi, when we were approaching the apartment building, and yet another verb that takes a dative object. What is the only kind of apartment building that one can approach? A dative apartment building. We spotted, perfect stem, perfect ending, est it, emis est serunt, certain men. Remember, quos with a dom is now going to mean a certain. Your first item is prandium, P-R-A-N-D-I-U-M, the Roman lunch. Yentaculum is breakfast, your word prandium. We spotted certain men, men entrantes, present active participle, entering into a bar, into an eating house, a public house, a pub, if you would so wish. Present active participle, modifying homines. Kawe illos, beware those guys. Marshall says, those masculine plural things, we call those guys, those ones, are scelestissimi. So, scelestissimi, very wicked, most evil robbers. At night, because they're from an act, you owe or you ought, debeo debere, to owe or to ought. So you ought not to walk alone through these streets. Moving on. Totem diem. Now, we learned a while back the uses of time. Like, for example, in the ablative, brevi tempore. In a short time, time within which ablative. You could also say something like tertria ora, at the third hour, on the third hour. But when your time is expressed in the accusative, it is showing duration. Duration of time and extent of space is always expressed in accusative case. So, mansi, from mania manere, mansi mansus. I stayed, apud, with my brother. Apud, however, can also mean at the house of. At the house of my brother. For the duration, total day. So normally you say in English, for something, you think dative. But here in this expression, because of English, for the whole day. Duration of time and extent of space is always expressed in accusative case. That is definitely probably going to be on the NLE, your second word. NLE. That's your second word for this easy quiz. After the optimum canum, the best dinner, I decided. Constituo, constituere, constitui. I, perfect tense, decided to go back home. Quamquam nox erat. Although it was night, I was fearing nothing of danger. Danger in the genitive case. Of all the danger, what part of it, the nothing part, was I fearing? A new word in this chapter, securus aum, means safe. I'd like to translate it as footloose and fancy-free, unconcerned. It's modifying our understood subject. Therefore, unconcerned, footloose and fancy-free, I was walking through the Suburra. The Suburra is a particular neighborhood in Rome that was known for its wild and at times seedy nightlife. Seedy means kind of sketch. Definitely sketch. Catullus, the great poet, was famous for writing poems about staying at a particular place in the Suburra. A seedy bar, a dive, if you would like. Cum. We look to see if the next word, when cum, is an ablative. It is not. This is the adverb suddenly. And when it does not have an ablative, we translate it when. So I was walking, footloose and fancy-free, unconcerned, through the Suburra, when suddenly 2 men, praecipitaverunt, hurled themselves out of, again, qui quod, with a dom, a certain bar. And you look at the qui quod part, not the dom part, to figure out what it is modifying. They hurled themselves out of a certain bar, 2 men who were bringing, Pharaoh Ferretililatus, fustes, another new word in this chapter, fustes. It is a cudgel, basically a billy club, something that you would knock somebody out over the head with. I'm looking for my little miniature bat. It would be like that, but I don't see it. Oh well, don't worry about it. So, now notice the subject here, and labam. The perfect passive participle. I, having been affected by fear, I was walking, not quickly, that's collateral, more quickly, easily. Now, for whatever reason, the word facile, when it is turned into an adverb from the adjective, it doesn't follow the rule. If it's a third declension, which it is, it should have an iter. But for this word, it is irregular, and thus is facile. Easily, they overtook. Now again, this looks passive. We want to say they were verbed. They have been verbed, but it is what we call a deponent. A deponent verb is a verb that looks passive, but is active in its meaning. They overtook me. Percussus sum, not a deponent. From percutio, percutere, percussi, percussus. To hit or to strike. What instruments do you hit or strike to make the noise? Percussion. I was struck. I have been struck. Ab altero. By one of them. By one. And here you have the other altero. That would be the other. So whenever you have alter, it's one and another. Plural. Some and then others. So I was struck by one. But I, perfect tense, defended myself most bravely, most strongly, superlative, with a stick. So he's trying to beat them away. Then, your subject again, I, from cado, cadere, cicidi. E is the it. I, you, he. I, perfect passive participle, modifying our subject in the nominative, having been grabbed, correctus, corripio, corripere, correpui, correctus, having been grabbed by the other one, a tergo. Another new word from your chapter, this chapter, from the back, or by the back. Then, having been grabbed by the other one from the back, I fell ad terram, to the ground. Now, this verb here, ademo, adimere, ademi, ademptus. It means to take an accusative thing away from a dative thing. So here, as a perfect passive expression, I know because it is a perfect passive participle, with a form of the verb to be in the present tense, so paired up makes it a perfect passive. The stick was taken away, has been taken away from me. Usually datives 2 or 4, but here from, because of this special verb. My money, adempta, implied with an est, sharing it, was taken away again from me. And so therefore, he is being beat up, poor Euclides, and he is being mugged. Almost done. Hang in there with me. Keep watching, keep learning. Keep earning that free 100. So my stick has been taken away from me. My money has been taken away from me. Pecunia, money. Those guys, the laughing ones, redentes, they did go away. They went away laughing. Diu again for a long time. I was lying, not throwing. That would be from a different verb, third IO. This is a second conjugation. Face down, pronus in the mud. At last, surgo surgere surrexi, I arose, and I did go back home. I returned home, again, perfect stem. That I, perfect ending. E, that red is just a prefix meaning not just to go, but to go back. So I did go back home. Summa, difficultate. Ablative of manner. In what manner? With the greatest, the highest difficulty. Cornelius says, Dolia, I am sad because you have received, you have accepted serious wounds. The word gravis, grave means heavy or serious. That's where we get the word gravity, because we can turn this adjective into the noun. Gravitas, which looks as though it might be accusative plural, but it's not. That's the nominative variant form of the third declension. Gravitatis. Remember, for these tatis nouns, as I like to call them, you turn it into an English word by just putting a Y where the AS would be. You get gravity, heaviness, as it were. So he says, I am sad because you have received serious wounds. Neuter, plural, accusative. However, you have been, fu isti, sum esse fui, futurus. You were or you have been. Not stupid, that'd be stultus. Stultissimus. Most stupid. What are you doing walking around? Nevertheless, so he's relieved. But he tells him, you've been very dumb. To whom? Now this is a linking qui. It's not really introducing a relative clause. It merely tells you that we're referring to something or some previous that we've talked about. You could easily replace it with the dative of hikako, to this guy, wick. The dative of leilala, to that guy, eli. Or isai, to him, ei, in the dative case. To whom Euclides says, ita vero, thus truly, master. But now I am, not wise, prudentior, wiser. Not again, at night alone, will, vobis bit, future tense, will I walk through the streets of the city. Don't walk by yourself at night in the city. Ancient Rome, incredibly dangerous place. And as such, this is not an uncommon occurrence. Rome was all about self-help, and they did not have a regular police force like what we do. And so, rather dumb move for Euclides, walking the streets at night alone. But now he says, I am wiser. And your final word, triclinium. Had to wait for it. Triclinium. Triclinium. It's the dining room. 3 couches. Study.